Look, you thought match number 2 was not going to be a banger, but certainly it turned into one with the help of Wei and Ziggs blowing things up there at mid lane. And look, into match number 3 of the day, it's going to be Pentanet and Legacy. And who knows which way this one's going to go. Of course, we all know it is going to be Pentanet favored. They haven't lost a game yet. But they also said that Legacy is the hardest matchup they've had in the first round of matches. And now it's time for some revenge.
They also let Katarina through in that match as well. So I wonder whether or not that storyline is going to change when we do get to draft. But I have to agree with that sentiment. It seems like from the games that we've seen that Legacy was actually the team that kind of pushed Pentanet the most out of anyone. And I sort of look at Legacy as that ultimate coin flip team where they do some weird things. And maybe if you're a team like Pentanet that is so good at beating the standard and just beating the other teams, Legacy comes in, throws a curveball at you, makes life difficult. You're suddenly going, ooh, we're on the back foot here. Obviously, they're good enough to still win that game, but Legacy makes it close.
Yeah. Put it this way, for context too, Mac, just quickly, because I know you got to get the show on the road before Witherby gets in your ear.
You know it.
Yeah. When I played back in the day, Shock is a really good example, right? Shock started in some teams that weren't that great, but the hardest thing to verse was Shock because he had a zillion pocket pick that he used to rip out whenever it was left open. And you never practiced against that. And I'm getting the same vibes for Legacy. They have the same niche picks that they sometimes are just the hardest team to verse. You get so nervous because you're not used to what they've got in the cabinet. And I think that's the team. That's Legacy. And Shock was just a good analogy for that.
Yeah, you know, just a little bit odd, a little bit interesting, and something you all love to watch. Now, let's talk Pentanet first. Let's jump into the conversation. They are looking spectacular in terms of the leaderboard, not dropping a game yet, and their macro just seems to be immaculate. They always seem to be doing the right thing, and they know exactly how to close out a game, Jordan.
Yeah, most definitely. There's not really a whole lot to say when it comes to Pentanet that hasn't already been said. They're 9-0. They are the best team. They're looking really strong. Across the board, all of their players look like they have good games, and they all look like they have that playmaking ability as well. You know, they all have their strengths and weaknesses and all of that, but you know, you look at Parbu, he's getting work done in the early game on a very consistent basis on the jungle. Chaz very rarely falling behind in mid, often doing very, very well for himself. Top lane, Biopanth, we know likes to play those sort of tankier, harder engaged kinds of champions, and he's obviously very good at doing that. And then down in the bot lane, you have the playmaking ability of Praetor, particularly when he's on the Kai'Sa and Decoy there as well on the hard engaged support. So you seem like you've got kind of the perfect composition of players that get to fit together and make this a really, really nice looking roster. So Pentanet, obviously, one would imagine at this point is our best hope at MSI. So I really just want to see them continue going from strength to strength, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting when we do get towards the playoffs to see if they can keep up their game. As Only said in the interview yesterday, you know, it's easy, I wouldn't say easy to do it through groups, but there has been teams that have had a spectacular run, but then as soon as it gets to playoffs, they just seem to trip over their own feet. And look, let's talk about the other side of the coin as well. Legacy is going to be on the other side of the rift today. And look, let's just talk Incursio. He may finally get to play Cat again, and if we get to see it, Jubes, how excited are we going to be?
Pretty excited, but I'm actually, you know, we hype Incursio up and we talk about it, and all granted, all warranted. I'm excited to see what Winter is going to play as well, because I feel like he's just the dark horse. Is he going to whip out the Control Mage? Is he going to play Renekton? Because he had a blinder on the Renekton. But for some reason, I think he's not going to give us standard 2 games in a row. We might see something funky out of him as well. So this team in general is just exciting, right? When you actually think about it. You get the Yone, the Katarina, the Azir top lane that's had some decent performances. I don't think he's ever won on it, but he's had some good games. And then, you know, to top that off, ML, a Bard player. So Bard's always exciting to see, always exciting to roam and see what he can get done. And it's just across the board. Across the board, there's just some champion pools that they have where they can do some serious damage. And, you know, maybe what we haven't said yet is Legacy are well and truly in the mix for playoffs. Like, they're a couple wins away from being right in the mix and talking about it at that 5th spot contention. So match means more than just meets the eye.
Yeah, it is going to be one of those hot topics, you know, how are they going to do for the rest of the run? Can they pull off a couple of upsets? which is something that they need to make it happen. And if we have
Yeah,
a
there you
look
go.
at the stats from the last time this game was played, the last time these two teams went head-to-head, this is how close it was. Kills very similar across the board. Pentanet towards the end had that, 7k gold lead, and it was enough to get them over the line. But 43 minutes, if we have that again, we're going to be pushing out the schedule.
Can I just mention one thing that this graphic doesn't have? Legacy also had Infernal Soul.
Okay. So just
Infernal Soul. They lost with the Infernal Soul.
better, I guess, objective gameplay leading to that point, but then Pentanet, I guess, just a bit of better team play to close that one out. I need to go back and watch that. I feel like that was a scorcher that we really didn't expect to get when both these teams went head-to-head.
Well, what happened was Legacy got ahead quite substantially in the early game, and then in the mid and late game, they started to just throw a few picks away. Pentanet always seemed to be able to find a player in a side lane, and slowly they started to claw their way back in until they were sort of on even footing, and then they were able to start cleaning up team fights, able to shut down the Katarina, and unfortunately in the end, Legacy was in a position where they went from being something like 7 or 8k up to actually being 7 or 8k down, and the game had completely turned on its head. So unfortunately they didn't manage to convert, and that I think is where the storyline really started, where Legacy was like considered, okay, pretty good early game, have these interesting moments in lane, win the 1v1s, that kind of thing. But when it comes to macro play, decision making, mid game team fighting, it wasn't quite all there for Legacy. So hopefully this time around they've sort of worked on that, and if they do get a lead, maybe they can make something of it this time.
Look, you're talking about 1v1s, and I feel like for the pre-game interview, we might be seeing a spectacular 1v1 as well. And to bring you this all-in brawl, it is going to be Nat T down on the sidelines. So, Nat, who do you have on either corner for this blitzer of a pre-game?
Look, I'm not going to lie, it feels like I'm introducing the lion and the lamb here. That's going to be Predith and Incursio. I'm not going to tell you which one's which, though. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. We were just talking about the fact that last time you guys went up against each other, we saw the longest game played at LCO, and you guys also had the exact same amount of kills. So, Predith, pardon me. Incursio and Legacy seem to be your toughest opponents so far. So how has the prep been going for them, and how are you feeling coming in?
I think the prep's been the exact same as every other team, maybe a little bit less. But yeah, during our game against them, I definitely thought at some points that the game was lost for sure. So that was really scary game. But at the end of the day, they have Sibling and Curzio. They're prone to giving their bounties up, so we just had to wait for them to do their special move, and we were back in the game.
Does that mean that we could potentially see the cat come through again? Because it feels that, even though it was a scary game before, you're not too worried.
No, we won't be letting the cat through again, I think.
Well, Incursio, hearing that one, how does that make you feel, and how excited are you for this game?
I'm pretty excited for the game because I want to show that we actually can finish it off this time. Let's be honest, I'm kind of sick of losing. So we're going to finish this game off like we failed last time. And hey, even though Katarina will be banned, I can pull out some other crazy shit. So it's alright, walk it off.
Interesting. That is very awesome to hear. I also want to talk about coming in, we're only a week away now from playoffs, and you guys still have a really solid chance to make it. So how is the pressure building up for you guys, and what are you looking forward to in the games to come?
We've definitely been thinking about it and talking about it, of what we have to do to make it to playoffs, but I don't think we can really do anything different from what we've been doing already. Just like focus harder, make sure we play a bit better, and make sure we close out games when we get our leads, because that's something our team is really good at doing, which is like the biggest things, I think.
And Predith, you guys are on the complete other end over there at Pentanet. You guys are secured 100% going to playoffs. So how are you feeling for that one? And does that mean that we could be seeing some interesting things coming from you guys?
I think I really care about being undefeated. I think going to MSI and being like, yeah, Pentanet was the undefeated team throughout the split. Like that sounds pretty cool. But yeah, it's like I don't want to be trolling any games. And I don't really care if we're not undefeated. If we're like 13-1, like I don't really care as long as we're like really strong for the playoffs and we can make it. Because I'm very confident in all my teammates in like a best of 5 series or whatever. So best of ones, anything can happen, and we're just playing these for fun, really. Now.
Well, look, it'll be very interesting to see if you guys do come out undefeated and how far Legacy has come from the last time you guys versed each other. But thank you so much and good luck with the game.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
All things considered, that interview was much more tame than I expected. It started with a little bit of spice, a little bit of a backhanded, wasn't even a backhanded compliment. It was just a, you know, like, oh yeah, we did a bit of prac, but not as much as we usually would for this one. So I was like, oh, okay, let's see where this goes. And then it sort of went uphill. Everyone went back to humble mode, which is good. We love a bit of, you know, some good comments, some nice wholesomeness coming in through here. Speaking of wholesome, let's look at the predictions and see who's being wholesome and going for the underdogs. I think it's me, probably. Yeah, let's bring it up. Oh, what's that? What's that? Screw you, Chaz. Screw you, Chaz. You know, that's all I have to say. All right, drop the mic. Get out of here. Is that? I believe in my boy in Curzio. All right, head to head. He's better. He's good looking. He's got 160p camera. But even so, like, he keeps all of his data rate into the server, into his champ. What do you got to say to that?
He's also partnered on Twitch, and Chaz isn't, you know, so just another thing. Not
Shots
that
fired.
I want Incozio to be better than Chaz, because I have gone for Pentanet here.
Of course. Any other thoughts, Jordan, Jubes?
I don't have thoughts. I just
Okay.
Nat, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Next time you interview Praedyth, can you please start off with what time did you wake up and what did you have for lunch or dinner?
Oh, we're still interested in when he woke up.
I was sitting on that like the whole time, and I was like, I can't continue my job here if I don't know the answer to that.
Yes,
Would
okay.
it be please find out about that before Praedyth's game?
Look, I will make sure forevermore I will ask him every time, because maybe he's fixed his schedule. Maybe he's getting up at a normal time now.
Well, he's certainly been playing scorching no matter what time he's waking up and no matter what he's eating. So maybe keep note of that. Keep note of that. We'll see if it changes as we do move towards the playoffs and Pentanet continue this run of victory, which they seem to be on. Let's see if that one gets stopped in its tracks by Legacy today. I really hope it is, because it'd make it so interesting. The fact that Legacy get another win, it puts them in the driver's seat to actually contend for, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th position with all these other games that happened earlier. You know, Chiefs with the L now still, they're going to be leapfrogged by Order, who was on that 4-5 scoreline or 5-4 scoreline, whatever it was they were on. It's just so many different equations that could have a different set of 5 teams in the playoffs. And also, you know, it also matters which position they're in, because it determines who they're going to be playing in the playoffs. Anyway, enough from me monologuing about, you know, potential things and stuff. And I'm done. I'm actually a little bit scared that Chaz is going to come after me after the game. But look, that's okay. It's fine. I'll deal with him with these bad boys. All right, that's it from me. See you later. Champ select time.
Ooh, I feel like Mac is just trying to show a bit of presence just in case Chaz is thinking about anything, you know. So come after me, you're going to have to mess with this.
Yeah. Animal
So
Kingdom type rule. Make yourself look as big as possible.
Yep.
And then all bark, no bite, is it?
I think something like that. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, I've got an interesting stat for you here, Tubes. I'm not sure if you've been keeping an eye on what Praedyth has been playing for pretty much this entire split, but he played Aphelios and then Xayah, day 1 and day 2. Ever since then, 7 games in a row, he's got Kai'Sa. So I'm not sure if there's really anything to speak to there, but just thought it's a bit interesting that he's playing the one champion. No one's decided to try and get that away from him, especially when he's been having such success on it.
It's, 80 carries in the middle are a weird one. They're not traditionally banned because there is a trade of 80 carries that you can get away with. Like, we often see the Thresh Aphelios lane traded for Kai'Sa at times and vice versa. And, like, for me, giving Pentanet Seraphine is a crime because they have players who can play it in every position. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Praedyth can play it in the 80 carry position if that's a route they wanted to opt in for. So that's scary because, yeah, like I said, Decoy's even played it and they won with it. So it's just too hard to predict where that champ is going to go, and it's just a headache that Legacy probably don't need. However, they prioritize getting the Scion off Biopanther, which I agree is a good thing. The guy's absolutely 1v9 gamer on the Scion. Hecarim on Pabu, the king of the swings, I think we labeled him. And I think Biopanther, they wanted to be called Bio Daddy, but I won't be calling him Bio Daddy because I have my own daddy at home. Well, yeah,
Questionable.
anyway. Questionable. Well, and by daddy, I meant dad, so I don't want it to... Yeah, anyway.
It's not weird, I promise.
The way you
Anyway.
laughed is weird.
All right, sorry for putting you off like that. Anyway, speaking of, we do have eight in a row for Praedith getting the Kaiser, so that's gone over again. Now, I mean, Legacy do get the Udyr, so that's been a pretty powerful pick these days, although, I don't know, at the cost of the Kaiser, the Seraphine, even I don't mind Mundo, to be honest, for Pentanet. It seems like they're starting to put together a pretty decent roster. What I am really waiting to see is what's going to be the mid lane and the top lane for Legacy. Okay, so we get the support. That's fair enough. I thought we might get a Thresh, actually, from Legacy, because Emil had a pretty good couple of Thresh games recently, but has gone into the Rel, which is fair enough.
Well, the Thresh lane, I'm surprised they didn't take with the Philios, right? It's the two champs that ML and Styled have played the most, but it's also the two champions with probably like the least amount of counters in lane. However, they've opted in for the Rel. Wonder if they'll take away the Thresh, but maybe they're just confident that the Seraphine's going support.
Yeah,
We'll have to wait and see.
I mean, I think normally you probably do want to be putting Seraphine into the support role. Let's see what we get here. Zaya banned away, Atrix banned away.
Faker Perma plays that in mid lane though, and they did beat Gen G 2-0 with it. So, you know, if we got a little Faker in the game, then maybe it goes in the mid lane. However, they are in a different patch. Double lady carry bans.
Banning Vayne away.
Vayne popped up into the meta a while ago when Kai'Sa was picked, because it is a lane you can get away with, because Kai'Sa doesn't really have like that quote-unquote strength unless you have Q Evolve, right? So it means like Vayne gets to bridge the real early part of lane, get the first base off, get like Berserker Greaves or get the first component of an item, and then you're able to start trading back. So yeah, maybe it's just something that they don't want to give away.
Well, looks like Winterer will be on to the Gnar, so Legacy are saving the final counter pick for mid. Which should be interesting. You know, Incursio prone to pull out some interesting champs. It could well be the Tristana into mid as well with that flex, but I don't know. I mean, Incursio's had some good games on Tristana, but I feel like there's flashier champs that I'd like to see him playing, to be honest. And no surprises to see Ornn going over to Biopanther. I mean, you talked about him being a 1v9 machine on Sion. I think it's kind of hard to ban out Biopanther, to be honest, because there's always just one more champion that he's got in the back pocket, and Ornn isn't even that deep into the pocket either, you know? He just has to reach in a little bit and grab it. So, not a bad choice for Pentanet. Good front line for the Seraphine to start comboing some ultis with as well. So, composition's looking strong, and Chaz gets a comfort pick on Victor as well. So, you can't really complain about this for Pentanet at all.
And Pabu was also the player that said that if they do lock in Udyr, then they're very happy to take the Mundo instead, right? They're very happy to have that trade, and he was very vocal about like this is the angle to take that. So, you know, Mundo here, and that explains the Vayne ban too, just quietly. They've actually prepped that. They don't want the Mundo to get shredded by the Vayne. So it is very smart from Pentanet here, and I really like what they've done. I really, really like what they've done. However, they have given Incursio his second best champion by far, the Yone.
Yeah. The immediate thought that pops into my mind is there's not a whole lot of magic damage for Legacy here.
Yeah, true.
I mean, Udyr does, but, you know, it's not the traditional sort of sense.
It is going to be very hard, now that you say that, to shred through this Ornn. And maybe that's the one shortcoming of the Legacy composition, is the fact that they don't have reliable... they don't have any reliable magic damage, like you said. So they're going to have a very rough time getting through the front line of the Ornn, of the Mundo. You know, Seraphine with the heals and the shields as well. So could be a little problematic in that sense. However, if Incursio, or Legacy rather, are able to get a lead in the early game, you can have all the armor items in the world. If the income's not there, you're still going to be able to shred through those targets. So what this says to me is that they need a very, very, very strong early game.
Well, I guess that's good for Legacy, at least, that they're generally pretty decent in the early game. I mean, there has obviously been some outliers. It's been outliers for every team, and the one outlier for Pentanet actually feels like it was that game against Legacy. I have to say that was the only game where I was even in a position where I was like 50% thinking maybe there's a chance they could lose this game. I still pretty much had confidence that they would come back and win it because, I mean, Pentinet's Pentinet at this point, so what more do you really need to say there? But it was the first time where I was sort of second-guessing myself. So, look, Legacy, best chance potentially for an upset against Pentinet. And today, they have drafted an interesting team composition. Both teams, in fact, have done so. So, I'm sort of crossing my fingers a little bit. We've seen 2 pretty good games so far today. 1 upset, 1 near upset. Can we get a third of the same caliber?
Well, somehow, some way, though, Pentinet just keep winning drafts. It's like they mind-controlled their opponent into drafting compositions where they're either really linear or they have one type of damage. In this case, you know, their majority, if not all of their damage is attack damage, and they've drafted it into double AD compositions. So, again, Legacy, we're looking to have a very strong early game. And Pentinet, maybe a slower one, happy to get the items and scale into this one.
All right, well, maybe we can go straight to the horse's mouth and get some info from the Legacy camp. We've got Ceres, who is on the line, ready to have a bit of a chat. And I suppose the first question here, and something that we highlighted in the draft, was that you've given the Seraphine over to Pentinet. I guess from your perspective, then, there mustn't be that much fear around that particular champion going over to Pentinet.
Correct. So
No,
we planned
and,
for that, of course. The general idea is that we're going to match it wherever it goes. In this case with the Tristana, that's also one of Chaz's really, really strong picks, so we're taking it away from him. We're kind of doing double damage. But for the most part, no, we're not too stressed about them having the Seraphine.
Okay, and then the other question that we sort of raised in the draft here was that there isn't a huge degree of magic damage on your side of the field. Now, granted, the jungle Udyr typically does put a bit out, but are you feeling that that's going to actually be enough to get through the Mundo and the Ornn?
Yeah, so when we're talking about damage mix, we also need to think about the functionality of teamfights. So our comp doesn't care about the 2 tanks. We don't care at all. We literally dive past the 2 tanks and kill their backline. And then once their damage is dead, then it doesn't really matter how tanky they are. They're going to fall inevitably. So the way our comp functions is that we just ignore them completely. Yone, Udyr, Gnar, like Tristana, Rel, all these champs just move past them, essentially. And we just get through the front line and just straight into the back.
Okay, and the last game that you guys played against Pentinet was arguably Pentinet's most difficult game. I mean, they even said so themselves, it seems like. So do you come into this with a reasonable degree of confidence, knowing that, at least for Legacy, normally the early games are generally pretty good, and if you can tighten up the mid-game and the macro play, then there's actually a pretty good chance against Pentinet?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the drafts that we have facilitate that as well. Drew's mentioned that we need to get an early lead. I think that we're set up to do so. They have insane and incredible scaling, but they've sort of sacrificed their early game in response. So provided that we have like I would say one of our average early games where we do build those leads at 15 minutes, we're set ourselves in a really good position to win.
Awesome. Well, I'm hoping that we're going to get to see as exciting of a game here for you guys as the last couple that we did just witness. So I'm going to wish you the best of luck, and certainly looking forward to this one.
All right. See you later.
Awesome. Thanks, mate, for the interview. See ya. Juice, a little bit going on in the early game there. An invade I saw.
Yeah, an invade coming across, and Pabu Pabu's dipping his head in to see what's going on. He wants to see if he can catch the Udyr on the camps, but Udyr is just extremely quick at clearing the jungle. And one thing I want to point out in terms of rune choices is the fact that Sybil's opted in for Presti attack, and you know, 9 times out of 10 we see Udyr opt in for phase rush just because the extra mobility is nice, the extra sticking power. So I think he's just really valuing the extra DPS early, potentially wanting to get ahead in those ganks. But like Siri said, right, they need to win the early game, they need to have a solid early game, and then they can close it out. However, the danger is that if you ever give a bounty across, or you ever give some gold across to one of these tanks, it is going to be a very rough time. And Sybil is doing a very good job so far in in reading the jungle matchup, and Pabu might fall down here.
I was going to say, they've got complete info as to where Pabu is. Incursio goes over the wall with the 3rd Q. Pabu should die, and does. Decoy, he flashed. He flashed to try and save him, and he wasn't able to. So, great start for Legacy.
Yeah, and this is the early game that we talked about them needing.
I mean, so Pabu just walks through the mid lane, gives the vision, and then there's a ward there as well. There's wards all over the place for Legacy. That's vision control to a T.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that we talk about, Sybil, right? The guy's either jungle faker at times, or sometimes he has some very, very, very questionable performances. And I've been a big Sybil fan for a long time, and you know, instances like this where he really reads the map, plays extremely well, gets in the enemy jungle, and comes out of nowhere. Pabu would have had no clue where Sybil was coming from, and evidently dies for first blood. So this is the type of stuff we like to see from Sybil. And if he can, you know, maybe a phrase of the night, if he can get consistent with it, becomes one of the best junglers in the league. But the problem is it's not always there, and at times he does get punished for those decisions. So have to see what he decides to do with his lead now.
Yeah, I mean, it does force out the flash from two of the Pentanet players as well. Obviously, Pabu and then Decoy, who tried to save him. So will there be some jungle presence down in the bot lane for Legacy, knowing that there is quite a strong all-in from Emelg on Rel? You follow that up with Sybil, who still has flash available, and Decoy needs to be very careful with his positioning. I mean, indeed, we see Sybil's sort of pathing down in this direction of the map.
This is the one window where Incursio has to roam. However, he's taking his time, and the window's gone, and he potentially is going to lose minions. And this is what we talk about with Incursio. He's happy to lose minions to try and get his lanes ahead. And he's definitely losing some in the mid lane now. However, the pressure generated gives a bit of a relief to Styled and Emelg, and even gets his team the first dragon of the game. And you know, we talk about the full AD composition into Pentanet's draft. Dragon stacking early on is going to be key for Legacy if they do not want to get outscaled. Because you can have all the armor in the world, but the Elder Dragon's just going to pop you through that.
I mean, in the end, Incursio doesn't miss too many creeps in the mid lane. There was a big fat wave waiting for him when he came back. So not a poorly timed roam from him. Has just hit level 6 now, as well as Chaz. So things are starting to come online for the mid laners. Winterer also online. Just a little bit behind BioPanther, but still hits 6 in reasonable shape.
I'm getting vibes of this game, man. I'm getting like the really good vibes. You know what I mean? The ones where we're in for a bit of a banger. Because all the tools, and so far at least, all the momentum of the game is in Legacy's favor. And as I say that, nice little trade back there from Decoy and Praetus. And it seems like both games now, where support's engaged on the Seraphine, they just get rooted in the spot, and the Kai'Sa just trades back and turns the trade. However, there's a dive coming on through, and I'm not sure there's much Pentanet can do about it.
I don't know that they're even aware of it. Incursio here, and that is the ultimate connected. The dive in, the follow-up from Emelg, and it'll be a kill for Styled. Forcing TP through from BioPanther, who has Call of the Forge God. Turns it into a 1-for-1. Incursio, he could have used that Q to get out, but he turned around, and now he's under pressure. BioPanther won't have enough damage himself. I mean, that was an Incursio moment for sure, but it hasn't ended up too poorly. And look at all the free farm that Winter is going to be able to get in top. He's pushing that tower in. Pabu's having to catch the wave. It does set BioPanther behind, but it's something that we've spoken about with relation to him before, and it's something that he does a lot.
Yeah, and it's not gold that's going to go to the wayside, right? Like, it would be far worse if Pabu was down bot side for that play as well, and they're losing that, and the Banar's getting free turret plates. Sure, he did get one, and hang on a minute, another all-in in the mid lane.
Incursio's going to go back, and Sybil is going to have to do it himself now. He will be able to. So strong in the early game is Udyr. He's just going to chase Decoy down as well. Look at that damage from Legacy. Oh my word. All right, Tubes. We have a night of League of Legends tonight, don't we?
I told you, man. Sometimes we just get these games from Sybil where he just really reads the map and everything he does works. Now, do you want to take stock of what was said in the interview from Praetus? Do you remember?
What did he say?
He said, and I maybe sort of quote, when Sybil and Incursio get bounties, we got to wait, we farm, they'll give us the bounties, and we'll get our way back in the game. So I think that's a crucial talking point and something we need to keep our eye on, because, again, with the composition Pentanet have, their bounties over to them are unacceptable. You will be quickly outscaled.
Most definitely. But everything is on the silver platter for Legacy. Or I mean, maybe it's not a silver platter just yet. You know, it's not that easy. But it's in the kitchen. It's being prepared. You know what I'm saying?
It's being chopped up. You know, we got the platter. The platter's the cabana's getting chopped up. The cheese. Everything's being made, being prepared, yet to be plated.
Well, Fate Sealed is online for Incursio, so if he gets another one of those Q knockups, you can combo that with the ultimate, and it's pretty much impossible to dodge at that point. Obviously knows Pabu was hanging around, so he wasn't too interested in overcommitting for that fight against Chaz. Speaking of, Chaz has finished off Seeker's Arm Guard, which will help him to survive, at least against Incursio in lane.
I mean, it'll help him survive against most. Like, Udio, while doing magic damage, still does physical too, right? So, need to keep that in mind. It's just there is not enough of a percentage to be accurate for how valuable that item is in this game. It is the most cost-efficient item as is, and then you pair that with the draft, and that item is stocks. That's Bitcoin for you.
Doggy coin, as
Doggy
a wise
coin.
man once put it.
Yep, doggy coin for sure.
Some shenanigans here for Legacy, just waiting for Chaz to step up, but it's down in the bot lane where Amelg has invested Magnet Storm, and Styled is trying to pump the damage through. Not really enough. Did force actually nothing out from the bot lane, really. Predator did ultimate. Anyway, doesn't matter. In the mid lane, Chaz just gets blown up. Oh, wow.
Yep.
So it's all over the shop right now for Legacy. They're getting it done everywhere. And what I wanted to say was that they did use the killer instinct down in the bot lane for Predator. So that was all that was forced down in bot.
Yeah, and we need to really take stock of this mid lane, and at what point is it unrecoverable? Because this turret is about to fall down.
Oh, hang on. Decoy has Encore available. He's going to use it. It does catch Sybil. Incursio looks to try and turn, but Exhaust available is going to make life pretty difficult for him. And so Incursio backs away. Chaz gets back as well quite quickly into mid. Overall, still a good passage of play for Legacy.
Yep.
But that's one of those instances maybe where Sybil didn't need to die and has.
Yeah, and that's the bounty that went across, right? Obviously, it went over to Seraphine. There's probably better targets that you want that on. But, you know, what's important here is you lose the Dragon. And, you know, you'd hope, if you're a Legacy fan, it's an Ocean Soul, because maybe they're able to win this one, even in the late game with the Ocean Soul. And you know, they did RNG that. Now, you have to think, imagine if they were on 2 Dragons now. 11 minutes into the game, they were on 2. Because the relative strength of Incursio compared to the Victor is it's not even comparable.
500,000 points, that's a lot.
Yeah, there is a lot of points.
The last game was 350,000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we got a lot of people putting their money in, well, putting their points in on Pentanet.
Yep.
Which seems like a safe investment, but you never know.
The 13% might make
big bank.
Big bank in the point department. And Sybil's just mid again.
Well, Incursio doesn't have ult just yet. It'll be coming up in a couple of seconds. Sybil's going to try and go for it. It hasn't worked out too well this time.
Yeah, Incursio's ultimate is like literally 5 seconds off cooldown. If he has his ultimate there, then that's at minimum a flash from Chaz that has to be burnt. However, Chaz is now half health. Incursio has the sustain of the fleet footwork, back to full, and potentially he breaks mid-turret here on this wave if he wants to go for it.
We'll have to wait and see. Certainly shoving that wave in pretty quickly, so I have to imagine that he does want to, especially considering Sybil is hanging around in the jungle. He's got a bit of info, knows where Pabu is, so he'll be confident to take it.
Oh, hate to see it. If you're a Sybil fan, hate to see it. Pabu fan, love to see it.
Hey, if he gets the blue buff, he's not going to be too disappointed. Hold that thought. Bot lane, nothing.
Ooh. Bit of a trading backwards and forwards. You can see this bot lane looks extremely volatile, right? In the sense that it's just millimeters and centimeters of skill shots landing, of CC landing on Rel, and turning that one around. So ML on the flank might be looking.
Oh, this could be big. He's out of vision. Decides against it.
The wave's too big. I think Cannon Wave is going to do a little bit too much damage at this point in the game. So they've decided to just play it safe and farm. And, you know, I like that from Legacy. It's good discipline because this point in the game, you take stock, you press tab, you say, what's our win condition? Oh, Udyr and Yone at the moment has the Kraken Slayer now, so it's okay to sit back, get carried. Wait for the Yone roam. He's got windows and windows of opportunity now. Mid-turret has been taken. So the angle to roam will always be there.
Well, another couple of players headed in the direction of mid lane. Incursio this time doesn't connect the ulti, so he's going to have to go straight back.
Yeah, but it's a flash burnt, right? And, you know, we probably didn't see this off camera. Styled and Praetor had a trade in flashes too. So now, whenever ML's might have to wait here again.
You're okay.
Yeah, whenever ML's flash is back up, or at least the ultimate, and Incursio's, this could spell trouble for the bot lane of Legacy. And this might be it.
Might be indeed. Sybil's hanging around. Incursio's hanging around.
Victor no TP.
They did push the wave out nicely, though. So the dive window seems to have closed.
Yep. Pentanet doing this really well. You know, even on the instance where they did die, they managed to trim the wave to 3 range creeps that were quite low, and so they weren't able to be punished. But what I really like here from Legacy is when we say the mid-turret drops, the first thing to go is the jungle camps, right? Yep. In this instance, Pabu's the first player to suffer in this game. And Legacy are doing a very good job in controlling the bot side jungle. And that's unacceptable.
What just happened there?
That
wasn't even a Seraphine ulti, or a Killer Instinct, or an Exhaust. Nothing, really.
Must have just got rooted by a decoy on the recall. I think they just walked up to the bush, channeling his recoil, and that's a very big get out of jail free card, right? Yep. Like this game was, you can see now, Incursio and Sybil have just pivoted topside.
Yep.
But you know, Praetor's not a player you want to give that gold to, and all of a sudden we win con bot side for Legacy now.
Certainly, certainly. And he's consistently been a win condition for Pentanet down there. So it's now 8 games in a row. Let's have a look at the replay here and see what did happen. Was on the ward.
Solo?
No, Decoy, I think, got an assist. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just a lot of damage. It's that 5th proc man.
Did he have Kraken Slayer too? Maybe he got it on the recall there. But yeah, it's the proc of the Kai'Sa passive. It's just too strong. And I mean, Kai'Sa's so snowbally. So old Kai'Sa used to not be this snowbally. You still needed items and you needed evolve and things like that. But with the way that the new items work and the build path that's efficient for Kai'Sa, she's just so snowbally. And Winterer might be trouble here.
Yeah, he does have Nah available, but I'm not sure that's going to save him. Will be forced to flash Killer Instinct from Praedith, and another kill goes over to the Kai'Sa. Sybil will stick around long enough to secure the Rift Herald. It was a risky Herald, by the way, because Incursio was back in base as well. But they've got it, and in the end, I think you take that trade, right? Winterer down, 1 death, you take the Rift Herald. Now you take Dragon. I mean, that's worth it in my mind for Legacy. But it's with the caveat that kill going over to Praetor, it starts to make him look pretty scary.
Yeah, it is worth it, right? Like mathematically, at least, it's worth it. But again, it's like you have to factor in draft, game state, nameplates, champions. Like there's so much to factor in. But in a black and white, like painting or picture rather, like yeah, it's worth it. You got the Rift Herald for 1 kill. You're eventually going to break a turret with it. You would net more gold from it. However, like you said, Praetor with that kill, it probably does more in a late game team fight or a mid game team fight than the turret did, or than the item that you got from that turret. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, and if you want to be hypercritical and talk about discipline, Winterer should not have got caught there.
Well, Incursio going to try and force onto Biopanther, who, by the way, has a lot of armor. So, in the end, that was everything invested by Incursio, including Ignite, and he gets him down to about half HP.
And he's also opted in for the Last Whisper, right? Like Incursio, so very early on prioritizing that armor penetration, but you look at the items coming through from Pabu, coming through from Ornn. Just what, 3 armor items on the Ornn already, and 2.5 on Pabu, you know, nearly on his, I think, Chem Tank component. So, the items for armor stacking are well on the way. Victor, Chaz being the Zonya's rush as well, so you have to think Legacy timer is ticking.
Certainly is. It's been creeping away from them. They started so well. Again, it's sort of like deja vu in a way. Legacy gets off to a good start against Pentanet, then they allow far too many picks to fall by the wayside, and all of a sudden Pentanet's sort of just back in the game to an extent. Legacy, I would say, are in control still.
Oh, for sure. But the one thing Decoy, I have to give a shout out to that he's done extremely well this game, is he's actually matched the volatile lane really well. So in that instance before, he was behind Biopanther, stopped them from diving him, right? If that was an option for them. Even in instances where Chaz fell down, Decoy was still there, offering a helping hand. Didn't work sometimes, sure, but he's reading the map, and you know, that spells bad signs for me, because when Decoy's in that type of mood, it becomes problematic. Early TP.
Yeah, a bit of presence again. The problem is, Incursio is really only finding these engages onto Pabu and Biopanther.
Yeah.
And those are not champions that he can blow up.
Well, in Cursio's defense, he didn't have ultimate, and he uses it there. Yeah.
Yeah, never mind. Down in the bot lane, he did find the engage onto Chaz, who I assume didn't have time to get the Zhonya's. Now Encore catches Sybil, but he'll be out okay. Winterer seems to be the one that's under the most pressure, but he'll just stroll away. What is going on here? They're still sticking around. Oh, Emelg in the back line. Doesn't have the ultimate, so can't lock them down quite long enough. And here comes Call of the Forge God and Praedith. Legacy have overstayed. The knock-up catches Incursio as he goes over the wall. This is it, Juves. That's the play that Legacy needed to avoid that allows Pentanet back into the lead.
Yeah, and that's a 20-minute Baron, so all of a sudden, even gold or, you know, just a slight lead to Pentanet, but that is going to balloon out once that Baron goes down. And it was all looking so good, but Sybil not knowing he's on a ward here is really the beginning of the end. Emelg sees an angle for an engage here, does not have the Rel ultimate, whiffs the engage a little bit, or juked rather, and then Praedith just gets backline access. And the key ultimates that aren't up here is what really lets Legacy down. You know, they do not have the presence of mind. They get the kill on Victor. They can back out. It's okay to back out there.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like the inexperienced teams that we talk about. They want to get the kill, and they want to try and force the agenda. But, you know, ultimates are your best friend in League of Legends, and they didn't have their best friends for that skirmish.
Well, this is where it starts to get harder and harder for Legacy. We'll have to hope that what Ceres said in the interview was true, in that they can ignore the tanks. If they can ignore the tanks, and if they can kill Praedith, they can still win the fight. Let's be real. Praedith is the only real threat right now on Pentanet in terms of damage.
Yeah, in terms of brute damage and numbers for sure, but the Fire Panther and Pabu are going to be able to sit in the front line for so long that their base damages alone are going to be too hard to deal with, right? Like Tristana's not going to get through them. Incursio is mainly the only one that can get through them, and with an Ornn and a Mundo stacking armor, it's even going to be hard for him. So
I mean, you just look at the build that Incursio's gone, and I think that tells you the story in itself. He's gone for Kraken Slayer instead of what was traditionally a shield bow on a Yone. So he knows that he needs that extra damage and that true damage to get through these tanks.
Yeah.
But it's at the cost of a pretty big amount of survivability, to be honest, for a Yone.
Yeah, and especially because, you know, the one way for him to do damage is backline, melee range, going to be focused down, and having that little more survivability is nice. But in a game where you just need to be doing the damage, a little bit hard. Might be a mid turret here, all down. Mundo's on the flank, so potentially we see a fight. Tristana just melts turrets.
Well, does Legacy even want to fight right now? There's Baron on all 5 of the Pentanet members. Praedith is still pushing the side lane, by the way, so this is not looking too great for Legacy. They're going to be cancelled on any recalls that they try to make. And in that meanwhile, Praedith takes a free tower.
This might be where you turn, though. The one fight that you can win is when Praedith isn't there, and he's recalling now. So if they turn like this...
Well, Incursio wants to. Had the ulti available, but decides against it. And Legacy continue to back away. So maybe an opportunity lost. Amel going to Hex Splash across the wall. Legacy not really too interested in posing a fight just yet. Perhaps waiting for the Mega Gnar, but it's going to allow Praedith to start making his way back up as well. Winterer dives in, lands on top of a stun, and then a follow-up from Decoy as well. He does get the Gnar ulti onto a couple of members, but the damage isn't quite there. Incursio, Fate Sealed, dives into the back line, but no harm, no foul. Pentanet are just too tanky, and Legacy is melting away.
Yeah, I mean, I'd even be a little more forgiving if it was just the Ornn and the Mundo. However, Seraphine just makes it Mount Everest if you're trying to climb. And there was just no damage that went through. They were tanking a turret, Pabu was tanking a turret, Fire Panther was tanking a turret, and still, not really, none of them fell below half health. And that's what I talk about. The base damage alone from these tanks is just a little bit too much. Decoy is doing extremely well in the Seraphine too, landing multiple roots in those instances, as well as the Seraphine Encore. So again, just really well played team fights from what we are beginning to know as really the teamfight kings.
Well, have a look back maybe at the replay, maybe not. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it was Winterer that dove in, and I think Praedith was really smart there. He waited so long with that killer instinct for the Gnar ulti to go through before diving in, and then there really isn't that much follow-up that Legacy has.
Yeah, I mean, Incursio ult just missed the Kai'Sa too, so Exhaust was very good from Decoy. It did go down straight away, however, You know, if the Incursio ult lands onto Kai'Sa, through the exhaust, maybe there's a realm in which they're able to do enough relevant damage and take her down, but that wasn't the case in that fight. Praedyth has stopwatch now too, upgraded ornament. Is absolutely just going to tear through whoever he's in front of.
Yeah.
So, you know, even at this point, right, we look at Chaz. We talked about him being extremely far behind. In terms of the rest of the members of Legacy, Chaz is pretty much ahead. And what I mean by that is, like, the last fight, the Chaos Storm was able to just completely zone styled out of the fight.
Do you know
we're talking? Yep.
What I've just watched down in the bot lane was Incursio just tries all in on Biopanther, uses everything.
Here we go.
And still loses the engagement. And he's going again.
He should win this.
Oh, he's got Call of the Forge God cancelled. Well done by Incursio. It's going to be close to knock up. It's too good. TP, it'll secure the kill for Legacy, one would imagine. But just a little bit too far gone at the moment for Legacy, and Praedyth dives right on top of his counterpart, blows him up. That's what Killer Instinct is all about, and surely someone's got to be taking Kai'Sa away from Praedyth at this point. He's just too good on it.
That is absolutely a one-shot. That is literally a one-shot.
Yeah.
And ult.
I don't think it's going to save them here, Juice, but Legacy is going to try their best. Pabu deep under the tower while Emil gets blasted away by the rest of his team. In the end, the Q is enough from Praedyth, and that is enough from Pentanet. Once again, you could say they were troubled a little bit by Legacy, but it'll be a pretty comfortable victory for them in the end once these creeps do come through and they can start to do damage to that tower. Incursio doesn't have his ulti, can't even go back on the E. Styled jumps back into safety to try and provide a bit of KD sustenance, but it's not going to matter, and the Nexus goes down. Pentanet will remain undefeated, 10-0. Legacy can't quite continue to push their campaign for a 5th place spot on the standings. Overall, another entertaining game, but another one that sort of leaves a bit of a sour taste in your mouth.
Well, if you're a Legacy fan, positive signs for sure. You know, then maybe with a few tweaks to the pick ban, it's a different ball game. However, Pentanet are just a little bit too good when it comes to the mid game. No matter what lead you have against that team, it just seems like it's never enough. It is just never enough, especially if Praedyth has this Kai'Sa. So, Mac, we'll bring you on in. What do you think about that game? I know you tipped Legacy.
Yeah, I really liked what I was seeing for the first 20 minutes, and then there was that fight on the blue side bot jungle, which unfortunately did not go the way of Legacy. It kind of went all over the place. Legacy really tried to force the fight, got completely wiped. I think Sybil was the only one to survive it, and yeah, he managed to get the bot tower, tier 2 tower, almost siege, but it cost them the Baron, and from that point, Pentanet closed the game out in 6 minutes. So, huge investment from that Baron. They got 3 towers, the inhib, and all it took them was, you know, Praedyth splitting down bot, and 4 of the Pentanet gamers just waltzing down mid, just making sure no recalls came through. It just seemed like music to my eyes, I guess. Just very well calculated.
Yeah, it definitely was, and like we said, this is actually the instance you were talking about, right? Beginning of the end here. And there was just, they could have taken a free reset, and Pentanet with the mind control, really, just forcing them to hang around in the jungle with no ultimates left. And you know, once you give away the Baron with the composition that Pentanet have, it is almost an impossible task to pull this one back, and just team fight after team fight win, and they really weren't even looking close to winning. Pabu just tanking the turret at the back here. And Incursio goes on in, but you know, 1v4, 1v5 against that kind of composition, you're not going to have enough relevant damage. And yeah, again, I talk about Legacy having some positives in this game. There definitely were, but if they play like this against the middle of the pack teams, I definitely think they'll be able to pinch some games. So I think Legacy will be happy with how they played. Just a few tweaks here and there in the pick ban especially.
Yeah, it's another one of those situations as well where the Udis slips through and it just doesn't convert to a win, where, you know, we've seen it be extremely dangerous a few of the times there. And look, speaking of someone that's very dangerous, usually armed as well, we have Nat T down on the sidelines, you know, ready to fire up a storm there. So who do you have? Which winner do you have there? Hopefully it's not Chaz.
Well, I was about to say, I have picked your favorite player, Chaz, to interview for the post-game. Chaz, congratulations on still being undefeated. You know, that was a much cleaner win over Legacy than the last performance. Did anything in the draft take you guys by surprise?
I I don't think that like their 5 champions that they ended up with was surprising, but the way they went to it was not, I guess, how we were anticipating it. But yeah, that's definitely like a Legacy-esque comp, for sure.
And the early game, not that it was like a rough early game, but it felt like Legacy had a lot of potential. Did you guys feel that at all, especially off the back of the game you guys had previously played?
Yeah, I mean, like, the early game for me was very, 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 very rough. Like, I don't know how much screen time was on mid, but like, I was terrified for my life. Like, ever since the flash, like, after that, it was just downhill. I couldn't even enter my lane. Like, those guys were just killing me from 2 screens away. I assume the goal lead probably wasn't that bad because top and bot and jungle were like doing okay, and probably completely nullifying what was happening mid. But it was definitely very like rough. But we always had like that thing. It's like, okay, well, if we just get like 2 high-threat items, the game's over. So that's all we were playing for. Like, that was what we were playing for from draft, and then we definitely didn't follow through with that when we did that mid play, and I died and burned, like, me and Decoy died and we burned both flashes. That was like not part of the plan. That was not following what we were trying to do. But yeah, we were always like certain we would win the game once we got to 2 or 3 items. So we weren't that worried with how early game went. Yeah.
How did you guys like rein yourselves back in then to get back on track and then obviously go forward to win the game?
Well, I don't know. Their bot lane just kind of like turbo entered for some reason. Like, Mark's just going, yeah, the bot lane's literally trying to lose this game for some reason, guys. Like, just keep farming. It's over. And then someone's like, yeah, just play safe and get this dragon. And Mark's like, wait, you guys are worried? Like, we've already won this game. Like, it's already over. He was just giving everyone, I guess, morale boost from the moment he got like the first kill when they blew up the bottom dive. But like, I think that they really messed up what was happening. Like, mid was actually in like a situation where I shouldn't actually be able to play the game anymore, but they just let me farm. Like, I froze the wave for like 4 or 5 minutes. I shouldn't have been able to legally farm those creeps. And then in return, they're just watching my ADC farm, like bot lane. So it's like they're giving me free farm, and then they go walk bot and then watch him farm. It's like they're not killing him or doing anything. So like they fumbled the living hell out of the early game, like their leads rather. And at that point I knew like, yeah, we're just gonna get to items for sure. But like our AD carry was like super vocal about how bad their bot lane was playing and how certain he was gonna carry.
As much as I'd like to say that surprised me, it absolutely does not at all. So that's very nice to hear. Last question I want to ask you though is, do you have any words that you'd like me to pass on for you to Mac?
Nah, I don't really think about that guy too much. I don't know why he keeps putting my name in his mouth, but hashtag rent free, that's all I gotta say.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again, and congratulations for still being undefeated this far into the split.
Thanks a lot. Catch you later.
Who was that guy?
Matt, can I have your back for a second?
Yeah, sure. What's up?
Unfortunately, the only reason that we needed to have his name in our mouths was because he was dead 3 or 4 times in the early game. So he just had to say that
Chaz
he was...
died. Chaz unfortunately back at the base.
Chaz getting
losing lane to
outclassed in the mid lane
yeah.
a little bit. Whatever.
Yeah, that's fine.
Chaz getting carried by bot lane, jungle.
Look, I got a bit of a morale boost from that, similar to what Praedyth was doing for Pensinet there. But look, it takes us to a break because, again, that was a scorcher. And we have one more banger coming up just after the break. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't go too far. 4th and final match is going to be Peace and Gravitas going head-to-head. We'll see you after this one.
Doesn't have the ultimate, so can't lock them down quite long enough. And here comes Call of the Forge God and Praedyth. Legacy have overstayed the knock-up, catches Incursio as he goes over the wall. This is it, Jews. That's the play that Legacy needed to avoid that allows Pentanet back into the lead. It's going to allow Praedyth to start making his way back up as well. Winterer dives in, lands on top of a stun, and then a follow-up from Decoy as well. He does get the Gnar ulti onto a couple of members, but the down